Hello everybody, welcome to the program Here to Eternity. This is a program about managing our wellness as we get older. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is John Povey, and I was born in London in England, and I trained there and became an accountant. Anxious to broaden my experience, I saw a job advertised for a management accountant in Zambia, and I applied for the job and went for the interview. I didn't think much more about it until a letter arrived offering me the job. The letter arrived on my birthday, so I took that to be an omen. So my wife and I, we packed up our home and we went to Zambia for a 2-year contract. The company that I worked for transferred me to South Africa before my contract expired, and we never went home. So I worked in various financial positions and then got into general management in the mid-80s. And there I got involved in negotiating with trade unions, recognition agreements and wage agreements and so on. And the consultant that was helping me said to me one day, "You're actually very good at this. If you ever think of changing your job, come and talk to me." And I laughed at him, because I'm an accountant. What would I want to be doing with that? But in 1986, I became a labour consultant. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And I have worked in a broad spectrum of companies in different industries, and I have done a lot of strategic work and negotiations and other types of work in labour relations. I wanted to share with you one of those pivotal moments in my life when the minister at the church that I was attending was appointed to head a commission to assist in the resolution of a schism in a neighbouring church. And I said to him after the service, "I make a living out of getting management and labour to talk to each other. Perhaps I can help you." So when I went round to see him later that day, he asked me about my work. And I explained to him how it was that in 1989, South Africa needed to change. And I said that government can change the laws, but that doesn't change people's attitudes. The church could change people's attitudes, but we didn't worship together. We didn't live together, we didn't play together. In fact, the only place where we all came together was in the workplace. The unions could bring about change in the workplace, but the only tool they had was attrition. Management, on the other hand, had the power to bring about change. And so it was that progressive managements were able to desegregate canteens and integrate ablution facilities and bring about changes in the workplace before those changes happened in society. And the minister stopped me and he said to me, "This is not a job, this is a mission." And for me, it was like he'd switched on a light in a dark room, and I suddenly realised what I was doing, this Londoner, in South Africa at this time. So, as a pioneer in labour relations during the 1980s, we dealt with the ugly stuff, the retrenchments and dismissals and disputes and so on. And fortunately, at the turn of the century, we introduced new legislation. So I was involved with skills development and employment equity. And in fact, I was a pioneer of the skills development area because I was an author of over 100 unit standards and over 20 qualifications. And so it was I became a qualified trainer, assessor, moderator and verifier. And I have consulted to a wide range of companies over the years. And I'm proud to say that I have been married for nearly 48 years and to the same woman. So I have a son who is a data scientist, works for one of the leading gold companies and is very involved in his church. And we have a beautiful daughter who the Lord called home when she was 18 years old. So I'm proud to also talk about my time in my role in the church. I've played various leadership positions. And my wife and I have been honoured to host Alpha programs. And that's helped us to look at ways in which we can share our talents with our friends. So let's talk to you about how this program came into effect. I was looking for something for my 68th birthday. I got some vouchers to go to a Christian bookstore, and I wanted something to help me. And I discovered a book called Wellness to the Glory of God by a Dr. John Dunlop. He is a doctor from Chicago and a Christian doctor who describes himself as a geriatrician, which means he looks at the people at the older end of the scale. And he says in his book that his observation is that Christians seem to cope better with old age than others. And he makes the observation that a 95-year-old playing golf, as opposed to one in a nursing home, is based on the decisions that they made in their 60s. But my observation in reading his book is that we don't need to wait until it's time to retire to think about these things. A 35-year-old shouldn't wait to have a heart attack before worrying about his health. And so we should be looking throughout our lives, how do we prepare ourselves for time when we come to the end of the world of work? Now, my observation is that we often worry about these things when it's too late. But I think the book tells me that even if you have neglected to look at these things, it's never too late. It's never too late to be able to do those things which God has ordained for us. So, with looking at life after work, we need to find out what our purpose is, and we need to understand the full scope of what is wellness. So, whilst we could look at this at any stage in our life, we really need to manage these things as well as we can as we get older. The book describes 6 types of wellness: our physical wellness, our mental wellness, our social wellness, our financial wellness, our spiritual wellness, and our emotional wellness. So, what is our purpose? The starting point is to say, what is it that we are looking for? What are we constantly seeking? And through our life, we busy ourselves with our education, with sport, hobbies, careers, family, and we're encouraged to do these things. Colossians says to us, work as if you are doing it for God. And work gives us meaning, status, prestige. The fact that we are able to earn allows us to do things. Now, for many of us, this COVID-19 pandemic has brought many of our plans to a grinding halt. Some of us have lost income, some of us have lost our jobs, and our wellnesses, our financial wellness, our social wellness being locked up for months on end have had a great effect on us. So this is an opportunity for us to go back and understand what God's purpose is for us in our life and to find meaning in what we do so that we can live our lives thoroughly and live it for the Lord. So we've got to start to think about what do we do after work. I remember a chap I worked with. He was a wonderful man. He was a mentor to me. And we worked very well together, although it was only for a short time. He retired. We had a wonderful celebration. 2 weeks later, he went to post a letter and never came home. He had a heart attack. And that's sad because we build up all of these things in our life and we need to use them, our talents, for the Lord's kingdom. We should be using them all the way through our life. But at the end of our life, we have more time. And I'm reminded of a song that was written by Brian Adams and Ali Willis called He's Not Finished With Me Yet. It was performed by Brandon Heath. And it reminds me very strongly that everything I've done in my life has all been in preparation for what the Lord still has in store for me to do for Him. And Psalm 92 verse 14 says, "Those that be planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall bring forth fruit in old age." And Proverbs 16:31 says to us, "Grey hair is a crown of glory." So it's very clear that in God's plan for humankind, that there is a purpose in us in our older age. Everything is for the purpose of the life to come. We must focus on our well-being to prepare ourselves for eternity. In later years, we give more time. We have more time to do things when we're not preoccupied with work. And certainly in this period of lockdown, we haven't been travelling as much as we were, and it's giving us more time. But how do we use that time? We must use it to reflect on our lives, to focus on the things in life, and to be active till we are called home. It's a time for us to worship, to read our Bible, and to ponder on our life and what Lord's message is for us. And we have to use our faculties and talents to benefit others. This isn't about feeding me, it's about how can I spread the light into the lives of others. So our longevity is God's design for us, and we must pursue that with vigour, passion and purpose. So let me tell you about the format of the program. Having had the privilege to facilitate Alpha programs, I've learned the value of discussion and hearing different points of view. People who have trodden a different path can see things in a very different perspective than I do, and sharing those things brings a richness into our lives. And I was thinking of a famous quotation which says, "Travel broadens the mind." And I think if travel broadens the mind, then sharing life's experiences broadens understanding. So, with this program, I'm going to present to you, according to the book, the concepts of each of the wellnesses. And that in the book, Dr. Dunlop suggests certain strategies that we should follow for each of those wellnesses. So we will look at those, share those thoughts, and the book is beautifully written with biblical reference. And then we will determine what are our own individual goals and strategies. Now, in the book, Dr. Dunlop encourages his readers to develop their own action plans and their own goals to achieve wellness in each of those wellness areas. But I know from my experience in the corporate world that when I'm developing business strategy with corporate teams, it's quite easy to identify the goals that you want to achieve, but then there seems to be a difficulty in finding how do I make that happen. So I developed a process to enable us to do that. And it's called the self-analysis. And I'll tell you more about that and how we're going to use the self-analysis to help us turn our goals into actions. So we will use the interaction that we have in our groups. Originally, I planned to present this to an audience. What's going to happen in this program is that audience will be Zoom meetings or something like that, or occasionally we may have some socially distanced contact sessions. But what's important is that there is interaction between people and looking at the needs of the group. And in doing so, I think that we are able to look at building community. So, for instance, we may have a person who says that I used to love going to the gym, but now my eyesight has gone, I'm not allowed to drive, I can't go to the gym. Maybe someone else in the group says, Well, I go to the gym. Why don't I give you a lift? Or perhaps someone else would say, I loved gardening, but now I've got to live in an apartment and all I've got is a window box. Someone else in the group may say, well, I've got a garden. Why don't you come round and spend some time in my garden? And then we can have a cup of tea and a chat afterwards. Or maybe someone will say, I used to enjoy doing projects with my children, but now they're all grown up and they've left the home. I'd like to use those things I've learned to help others. And someone else in the group, like my wife Jill, might say, well, why don't we set up a craft group? I'll show you how to make blankets which don't need to be sewed. And we can set up work groups, get together, and then make blankets and take them to the local orphanage. Or maybe there's a retired businessman who will say, I've made my time in business, I've made my money, I'd like to find ways to give back. Can we set up training for entrepreneurs, like the paradigm shift training? Or can we set up mentorship programs for budding executives so that they've got someone who's got worldly experience to share with them? So I think these are some of the things, and there'll be many others, that can come out of us sharing the development of our goals with our friends and colleagues. So let me tell you about the self-analysis program. The way we use this program is that you list the key issues that you want to focus on and you set your goals. So you set a goal for yourself in a particular area. Then you say, what is the desired outcome? What do you want to achieve through this goal? And you put your outcome. Then we're going to do the analysis. The analysis will say, the S stands for strengths. The strengths are, what are we currently doing that supports the goal that we want to achieve? Then we're going to look at the E, the external influences. What things are there outside of our control that influence us being able to achieve these goals? Then we're going to look at the limitations. What limits us from achieving these goals? I don't have enough time, I don't have enough space, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough knowledge, whatever it might be that limits me from achieving this. And the F stands for failings. What are the things I'm currently doing that detract from the goal I want to do? So we do this little analysis, and it's not so difficult to do. And once we've done that, then we can develop strategies to address each of these areas. So the strategies will say, how do I keep on doing the right things? Because I've noticed when people develop strategies, they focus on what they're doing wrong, and when they get together next year to look at the program, the things that were strengths are now failings because they stopped doing the right things. So we've got to make sure we carry on doing the right things, that we say, how can I harness the external influences? How can I overcome it? How can I find a way around it? How do I overcome what limits me? If I don't have enough time and space and money, how else can I do it? How do I stop doing the wrong thing? If this is not contributing to my goal, I'm going to stop it. How do I do that to make sure I don't do it again? And when you've answered those questions and drawn out little actions, you have an action plan to help you achieve your goal. And I've tried this many, many times, and I've had even companies come to me and say, we've got this wonderful business plan, we've got it set up to run, but we don't know how to make it work. And I've taken them through just this very program to help them identify the actions they need to take to turn their goal into reality. So let me have a look at an example to see how this works. In the pack of documents that you're going to get, whether that's hard copy or online, is the self-analysis form. And it looks like this. So it lists the strengths, external influences, limitations and failings on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we're going to say this is the goal and these are the things I want to achieve. And then we will answer the question. So I've drawn up a self-analysis as an example. So let's have a look at this. My goal is to improve my physical well-being. And I've identified in doing that, I want to lose weight, I want to get more exercise, and I want to eat better. So I've now looked at those goals and said, what are my strengths? Well, I have a treadmill at home, so that's a strength. I have a meal plan from the clinic. What are the external influences, the things beyond my control? Well, how safe is it for me to walk in my suburb? And I'm a type 2 diabetic, so my diabetes is something which influences how I can do these things. What are my limitations? Well, time isn't really of the essence anymore, but motivation to do exercise. I love doing exercise, but it's so easy to find yourself busy all day and then you turn around and it's dark. And the discipline to diet. Now, when I talk about diet, this isn't just one of these things where you deprive yourself of things. It's about eating the right things to enable you. And we're going to learn more about that when we get to physical wellness. And one of my failings, I don't have an exercise plan. If I don't have a plan, I'm not likely to do regular exercise. And I don't monitor what I eat. Especially in these lockdown times, it's a bit easy to rummage in the fridge and eat the wrong things at the wrong times. So that's what I've analysed as things for my goal to improve my physical well-being. So once we've listed these things, we go to the actions. What can we do to carry on doing the right thing, to harness the external, to overcome the limitations, and to stop doing the wrong things? This was my plan. I will diarise to use the treadmill 3 times a week. Now, in my time as a businessman running businesses, to-do lists were the thing. So if I diarise things, maybe I'll be more inclined to do them. Get stretching bands and do 10 minutes every other day of stretching exercises. That will help help me to lose weight as well as my well-being. I would join a local walking group to walk in the local park together. Where would I do that? Well, I'm going to look at my friends at church and say, come on, can we get together and do this? And walk in safety. It's safety in numbers. It's not safe to be walking around the suburb on your own. But if there's 5 or 6 of us, then as long as we're socially distanced, it's fine. I could get a carbon calorie counter app on my phone so that it will help me to discipline myself and start monitoring what I'm eating and my diet. There, I'm going to use my son to help me because getting the right app, getting it on my phone, showing how to work it. I've often said when you get a new app, they should supply a teenager so you can learn how to use it. I'm going to ask Bill and Jack to join me in the exercise program. They're good friends of mine. Maybe they will also join in and we can do exercise together. I'm going to measure my weight and calculate my BMI. So the next time I go to the clinic, I'm going to find out how do we measure this thing, because the dietitian there tells me to use this system. I'm going to get her to show me. And then I'm going to set a quarterly goal to get my BMI down by 3 points. And then I'm going to learn to enjoy vegetables and fruit, cut out eating so many sweets. So there's my plan. If I go back and say, if I looked at my strengths, external influences, limitations and failings, have I addressed them with my action plan? And we'll often find an action plan will address more than one item on our self-analysis. So that's how we use the self-analysis. You'll soon get the hang of it. So let me talk about the outcome of the program. The program is there to reflect on our own wellness, to develop our personal goals in relation to each of those areas of wellness, to construct actions to bring about our goals, and have a list of things that we will do to bring purpose into our life, to look after our physical health and develop our mind. It's too easy to spend our retired years in front of the goggle box, but we need to keep doing things to keep our mind active. To focus on others. Otherwise, especially with this lockdown, it's very easy to just think about yourself. We need to focus on others. And even if we can't get out and meet people, can we send them messages? Can we phone them? Isn't it lovely when you get a phone call from someone that you haven't spoken to for a few weeks or a month. It's so refreshing. To manage your finances, we're going to look at whatever your situation is, what things can we do to manage our finances, to press on to the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal in our life is to give glory to the Lord. And then to feel well about ourselves. Because we're going to learn, just now I'm going to talk about overview of wellness, that wellness is not just about measuring your physical wellness, it's how you feel. So let's do that. In the overview of wellness, we've got to understand that wellness is not just about our physical well-being. I can be fit and healthy and have no friends. What sort of life do I lead? And the areas are not interdependent. Each of these wellnesses relate to each other. And if I can manage any one of those wellnesses, then it's likely to help me manage other areas of my wellness. So if I get physically fit and I feel good about myself physically, do I feel more inclined to engage with other people socially? Okay. So what we've also got to understand, I'm not going to be tops in everything. And some things I'm going to be better off than in other areas. So I can develop the strengths that I have to help me work on other areas. I can accept that most areas of wellness will diminish with our age. I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. But what is exciting to understand is that our relationship with God can grow and grow. Nothing stops that. However ill we might be, we can continue to grow in our relationship with God. So to stay well requires planning. That's why if we develop an action plan for each of our wellnesses, we will put some structure into our lives to see that we can do the best with whatever wellness we're blessed with and make it work to the best for the glory of God. So, let's talk about those wellnesses. Physical wellness, yes, it's how well do you function? Are you agile? Are you disease-free? And if you've got a disease, like I've got type 2 diabetes, are you doing the things you can to keep it under control? So look at our mental wellness. Like I said, it's too easy to just cozy down in an armchair in front of the television and watch whatever images come up. But are we reading books? Are we doing things to learn new skills? Are we doing things to keep our brain active? And our social wellness. What are we doing to keep in touch with people? And the internet is fantastic. You know, some years after I left school, and my school closed the year after I left and got amalgamated into another school, one of my friends from school started up a website for old schoolmates. And it's wonderful to get these messages of how my friends and colleagues from 50 years ago, how they're doing, what they're doing with their life, and what are their thoughts about what's going on in the world. Our financial wellness. Whatever we have or haven't done in preparation for our finances, and however they've been affected by this recent turmoil that's happened in our world, what can we do to make the best of our finances? We're going to look at in some detail of that in one of the programs. And then, what are the things we can do to grow our spiritual wellnesses? Do we have a plan of reading, of spending time with the Lord? Do we have time of prayer? Do we get involved in cell groups or home groups in our churches? Do we get involved in ministries in our churches? And maybe in our social clubs, in our different aspects of our lives, in our families? What are we doing to keep that message going in our life? And then the emotional wellness. It's understanding. If we understand what's happening to our bodies, what's happening to our friends and the people around us, can we use those things to keep our emotions under control? It's very easy, especially in these times, to get very despondent. And someone was saying to me the other day, I look at the news every day and it just makes me depressed and I get angry. Well, let's get some perspective about these things and understand that there's things much more important than these events in the world. There's events that's going to go on in the next world that we must focus on. So the book tells us that as we get older, 5 of these wellnesses will diminish. Our physical wellness will diminish. Our mind will go. As our friends die off, our social circle is likely to shrink. Our money will run out at some stage. Our emotional wellness will become more difficult to cope with. But the one area that can grow is our spiritual wellness. And if we put our energies and have a plan of action to say, what can we do to grow our spiritual wellness, we can look forward to the day when the Lord calls us home. Just want to share with you from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 to 18, Paul's insight of wellness. We do not lose heart. Even though our outer nature is wasting away, our inner nature is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. We look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. So, Dr. Dunlop defines wellness as that blessed state of experiencing all spheres of life functioning in harmony with God's ordained purpose. And then he explains what this means. Blessed means it is a gift from God. And we must recognize all life is a gift from God. The state of experiencing is about feeling well. All spheres of life, all 6 areas of our being. We need to focus on all of areas of our wellness. Functioning is not just a state, but what we do. So even if I've got physical impairments, what can I do to make the most of my life with those impairments? And being in harmony in God is united with something which is bigger than ourselves. And God's ordained purpose. Well, Romans 8:28 tells us. We know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. So that gives us encouragement about where we're going. So we need to live in harmony with God. And Deuteronomy 6 verses 4 and 5 say to us, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your might. It's an instruction from the God to us. So our ultimate purpose is to love God. We love God in the way we love others. We glorify God when we worship, praise, value, honour, thank and enjoy him through his reflection in what we do. We glorify him in our spirit, in our actions and in our worship. Passion for God removes concern for ourselves. Now, in the book, Dr. Dunlop gives some examples of people that he knows and what they've done. And I want to share with you 3 of those. One character is Caroline. She is 87 years old. Her total preoccupation is looking after her severely demented husband. This is her way of loving God. She doesn't complain because she knows that what God has called her to do is to look after her husband. Life is not easy, but she has experienced that deep peace that the Hebrews call shalom. Now, shalom is not just peace be with you. That was from the 60s. Hey, peace, man. Shalom is a feeling of total being at peace and harmony in the world. Okay? And when you are doing something that you know is right, that God's purposed you to do, you can feel that experience of shalom. Will and Sandy are another couple. When Will retired, they sold up their family home and bought a motorhome. And they spend 6 months a year going around to various Christian camps, and they spend some time there. Will does repair work for the camp, and Sandy works in the kitchen. And they are so happy because they are spending their lives serving others. Jack was widowed after 64 years of marriage. And I think 48's a lot. 64 years. He suffers with arthritis. But he goes to 2 different Bible studies each week. He visits church members in a local nursing home. And life is tough for him. Struggles to get around. But he's found purpose. All of them have found purpose in their later lives. So, our passion for God's glory means that we can function out of fullness, not out of emptiness. We can look at our life and say there's plenty of emptiness in our life, but there's also lots of fullness. So let's focus on the fullness. We can energize and ignite our passion for the Lord to serve. There's nothing more powerful than serving the Lord. We can fulfill our eternal purpose and be content to know that what we are doing is serving God. I just want to share with you another one of those moments in life. I have a cousin who is a professor of law in the UK. When we were planning to travel or emigrate from Zambia to South Africa, we needed immigration papers. And my cousin worked close to South Africa House, but she refused to go and get the papers for us because she disapproved of us coming to South Africa. And every time my wife and I went to visit family overseas, my cousin would never come and join the family gathering. So we were boycotted. And it wasn't until it was her mother's funeral that I met this cousin. And when I walked into the room, she didn't say hello to me. She just said, "How long are you going to stay in that country?" I was taken aback, but I just responded immediately by saying, if it wasn't for people like me, it may never change. And I think this is something about the purpose, like that moment I shared with you with my minister when I was telling him about my passion for my job, that I wasn't the only person that changed South Africa. There were thousands and thousands of people who all contributed in different ways to bringing about change. And it's in the same way that if we help one person, we're helping the Lord. We're fulfilling the Lord's destiny for our lives. So we can do things that have eternal impact in small ways. And we can experience shalom, that sense of peace, to feel that we belong, that we're making a contribution to the world, and we're giving glory to our Lord and Saviour. So we can pursue God for all eternity. So I'm going to ask you to do a reflection, and there'll be a little sheet for you to work with this, and it's going to ask you to rate yourself how well you are doing in the following areas of wellness. You're going to give yourself a score. How is your physical wellness, your mental wellness, social wellness, financial wellness, spiritual wellness, and emotional wellness? And this is not just for people who are retired. This is for anybody. Because you can be asking yourself, if you're that 35-year-old, am I doing stuff to keep fit? Am I keeping my brain alive? Am I learning new skills? Do I have time for a social life, or is it work, work, work? Am I preparing my financial plan for the future? Am I putting away money from what I'm earning today to provide me with a cushion for the future? Am I spending my time with the Lord in my busyness of raising a family and being at work? And am I developing my emotional wellness as I go through life? So I want you to do that exercise and then select one goal for yourself, any goal you want, and do that self-analysis for yourself for that goal, just to get used to seeing how do I define my goal, what my objectives are, look at those 4 areas and then write some actions. Get some practice on that, because in the following sessions, we're going to be doing that exercise for each of the 6 wellnesses. So with every chapter of the book, we will end with a prayer, and I'm going to share that prayer with you now. Dear Father, it is likely that you will grant me more years to live on this earth before you call me home. I want them to bring you glory. I pray that you will guide me as I journey through this program, capture my affections, and allow me to love you more. Allow me to experience shalom as I learn to have greater focus, so that all areas of my life work together and count for you. I pray this, knowing that what is best for me is that you will be glorified. Amen. So folks, what's going to happen now is you will be split into your groups if you're online, and in your group, your coordinator will share with you some thoughts about what we've discussed today, and we will encourage you to do that reflection exercise and set yourself a goal and work through a self-analysis so that we can get used to making plans. Then I'll see you all next time when we're going to look at one of those wellnesses in some detail. I see you then. God bless you.